Teresa worked at the local dental clinic. Wednesdays and Sundays were her days off. Over the years, as I climbed the corporate ladder in my company, I noticed that the higher I rose, the less I actually had to do. Returning to the office after lunch, I realized there was almost nothing on my desk. I had a good team, and I trusted them enough to delegate the work I was responsible for. It wasn't rocket science, just hire the right people and pay them enough to keep their loyalty. As I paced my office for the 100th time, it struck me that today was Wednesday, and Teresa would be home. What's the point of being a vice president if I can't leave early from time to time? I told the secretary I was leaving and asked her to call me on my cell if needed. I hopped into my SUV and headed home. On the way, I thought about how surprised Teresa would be to see me. In 19 years of working for the company, I had only come home early 3 times, and that was because I was so sick I could barely stand. Approaching our house, I noticed an unfamiliar car in the driveway. Parking, I cast another glance at it. It was one of those silly, in my opinion, Mini Coopers. Teresa had a certain interest in them, but I'd prefer not to be seen in one of those trendy Volkswagen Beetles. I hate them. Opening the front door and listening to determine which room Teresa and her visitor were in, I casually asked who had come, but heard nothing in response.
Woking trug ze grauen Flor, I kaukt feen sounds from ze bedroom upstairs.
I ascended the stairs as quietly as I could, as a foreboding crept over me. I even remembered to step over the 5th stair, which always creaked. It was obvious the sounds were coming from the master bedroom, and it wasn't me making them. There was a real problem in my house. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, and I crept closer, peeking inside. What I saw immediately burned into my brain forever. I could see Teresa's legs wrapped around a guy's waist. The door was only slightly open, and I didn't see anything more, nor should I. I stepped back and leaned against the wall, afraid I might either burst in or play dead. As I tried to calm down, my wife's lover started talking.
Do you like it, huh? He demanded. Dus and your hobby love you as much.
Teresa would never tolerate such talk, especially directed at her. That's all I knew, and then I heard her scream in agreement. How could a woman I knew so well do this to me, in my house, in our marital bed, with some loser? My first instinct was to barge in there and wring everything out of the guy, then slap Teresa.
My angers garet me.
I had always managed to keep my emotions in check to avoid legal trouble. This was the only time I was ready to break the law. Then I thought of my 2 kids and my job. If I threw her out, she'd want half of everything, and if I ended up in jail, I'd surely lose my job, and she'd get everything. Somehow, my brain snapped back into normal mode, and I realized I could always find this guy and take care of him, and Teresa wouldn't go anywhere if she thought I didn't know her damn secret. I felt like I had 2 options. I could either accept Teresa's infidelity and hope her fling would eventually end, or I could seek revenge. The right choice in such circumstances has been debated since Adam and Eve, but I personally had no moral dilemma. I just needed time to plan everything. I left the house as quietly as I entered, noted the license plate number, and returned to my car. Then I did what any normal guy would do when concentration and clear thinking were so necessary. I went to the local watering hole. Clarity of thought and the obviousness of needed answers are directly proportional to the amount of beer I drink in the first hour. I downed 4 pints, and strangely enough, they didn't help, so I had a few more. And that's when the strangest thing happened. I didn't even get drunk. I just got angry, then brooding, and felt utterly alone. Sitting there pondering Teresa, I realized she had permeated every part of my being. She was what made me whole. I couldn't blow my nose without considering how she would want me to do it. I excelled at work mostly because she always pushed and encouraged me to strive for better and to feel like I could do better. She made me feel confident and more level-headed than any macho man. This woman was so cunning. I never realized she was making me dependent on her. I always told myself I could quit smoking anytime. The truth was I was addicted to a deceitful wife. Could I buy a patch or something to help me break this habit? Was there any refuge I could use? Surely there was some support group where I could stand up, say my name, and then admit I was addicted to this person. That scenario was too awkward, and I quickly dismissed the thought. I sat there trying to come up with a solution. It would have to involve something like Teresa's lover destroyed after his gear was crushed and then torn off. Teresa had to somehow feel that losing me was bad. I could never bring myself to cause her physical harm. I knew that with a certainty that didn't even entertain the thought. Even after everything I had seen, I understood I would descend into hell to save her from harm. That was the part that angered me so much. She had me. She insidiously seized my soul. Maybe she was some kind of witch or something. I was bound much more securely than if I were shackled hand and foot with chains.
How did this happen?
Why didn't I notice any warning signs that my will was no longer my own? I didn't even notice how her affair started. I was happy, and thought she was too. It became obvious that the revenge plan would not be simple. She couldn't have any real feelings for me to do what she did. If I destroyed myself, she'd laugh all the way to the bank. I didn't have real power over her. I couldn't make her suffer. That's when the beer finally kicked in.
And clarity flooded my brain, dispersing the fog.
Revenge didn't have to be immediate to be satisfying. Quite the opposite, it would be much sweeter this way. It was then that the dumbest revenge plan ever conceived by humanity was born. I started to grin when I realized the genius of my plan lay in its simplicity. I decided to become the perfect husband, friend, lover, and partner. I was going to cling to her soul with an iron grip, just as she had clung to mine. She would need me and depend on me so much. That's what would really hurt her when I cast her aside. I realized it wasn't conventional wisdom to get back at a cheating wife, but maybe no one had thought of it before. I could probably write a self-help book and make a fortune off of it when I was done. Feeling refreshed, I settled the bill and headed for the door. Beer was my best friend, and it was with me again. Just as some guy set a table right where I was trying to walk, I bumped into it, spilling someone's drink and slipping on the spill. After I got up and assured the concerned bartender that I'm okay, I headed for the exit again. The clarity of my mind didn't extend to my limbs, which had lost most of their sensitivity. The journey home was long and arduous. I nearly got lost in those 2 blocks from the bar to home, but eventually made it into my house, ready to enact my sinister plan.
Joe, are you all right? Teresa asked.
I'm fine, thank you, dear. Why do you ask? I gently replied. Well, just a couple of things, darling.
Teresa smiled.
Your shirt is torn, pants dirty, you've got a bruise on your cheek, and you're 3 hours late. This would be tougher than I thought. She was good, very good. My thoughts raced as I pondered how to become the perfect husband.
Do you want me to take out the trash, honey? I asked. Teresa gave me an incredulous look.
Or would you prefer we go to the mall and buy you some new clothes? She stared at me as if I had 3 heads. How about we try to get tickets to the ballet?
I quickly added.
I knew she liked it.
How hard did you hit your head, Joe?
Sit down here and let me look at that bruise, Teresa insisted. That's how she took control of me, being so attentive and caring. I sank heavily into the armchair. Teresa went to the sink, dampened a napkin, and wiped my face, scrutinizing it closely. Her touches still sent shivers down my spine. There were a few wrinkles on her face, but I realized she was even more beautiful than the day I married her. She gained a few pounds, but it only added to her feminine charm. Teresa quickly withdrew her hand and reached for the phone. I'm calling an ambulance, Joe. I think you might have a head injury. I'm worried, she confessed. My plan had already fallen apart. Going to the hospital seemed like a stupid idea. I stood up and grabbed her phone. I remembered how on that day she was wrapping her legs around some dude, and my whole plan collapsed. The beer was running out, and anger was creeping back in. I thought a wonderful wife like you would come up with something better to do with me, I chuckled.
What did you say, Joe? Teresa asked.
How did you call me? I'm 6 feet tall and weigh 185 pounds, while Teresa is 2 inches taller than 5 feet and has never weighed more than 120 pounds. I simply picked her up and headed upstairs to the bedroom. Joe, you're not well, let me to take you to a doctor, she pleaded. I had to give her credit. Over the years, she had come up with several strange reasons to avoid making love, but this one took the cake. I threw her onto the very bed she'd been playing on without me a few hours ago. It occurred to me that she might be worried. She was dressed in a baggy shirt and loose shorts, and I just reached out and pulled the shirt over her head before she realized my intention. Joe, you're injured and need attention, she pleaded again. I'll show you what needs attention, I coped. I found nothing, but I persisted in searching. Teresa stopped complaining. She must have realized there was no turning back and decided not to resist. I moved closer to find evidence. Everything looked normal. In fact, she smelled nice. This woman was smart. I had to give her credit. I found no trace of the guy who had been with her a few hours ago. Joe, I don't know what happened today, but you were magnificent. Those names you called me, and your tension that I had to do everything to please you, she smirked. Then she kissed me, and I hugged her, wondering how I could live without her, and then I saw the evidence I was looking for. Sheets that had been on the bed earlier were lying in the corner.
Is that a trap?
Darling, why are there sheets on the floor? I asked as calmly as possible.
I know you'll be angry when I tell you, honey, Teresa warned. My blood boiled again. What gives this art? I squeaked.
I was very proud of my cool demeanor, even after the effect of beer wore off.
Promise, Teresa insisted.
I crossed my fingers behind my back and replied, I promise. I was going to destroy this man. Remember I told you last week that I had to attend a seminar on filling out insurance forms correctly at work today.
Teresa asked.
Did she tell me that? I also made the mistake of telling Louise that I wouldn't be home all day. You know she has some family issues. When I came home, she was in our bed, drunk and sleeping with some guy she found at the bar, Thea continued. She brought him here so Jack wouldn't catch her. My head was spinning. This wasn't Teresa, it was her stupid sister. I remembered her telling me she had to attend some seminar.
I just never paid attention. Teresa still lovet me.
Then I remembered what I called her. She must have thought it was just a love-making thing and nothing personal.
I dodged a bullet.
I was furious and kicked them out of here.
I don't know his name, don't even ask.
He's not worth your time or trouble, Teresa assured me, stroking my cheek.
Are you upset? I was ecstatic.
A huge burden lifted off my shoulders. I grabbed Teresa and kissed her tightly. My heart was bursting. You can't be responsible for every stupid stunt your sister pulls, darling. I love you so much, I whispered to Teresa. Then I heard the words that brought me back down to earth and almost spoiled my evening.
I love you too, darling.
I'll go online now and order those ballet tickets.